I got a few medals here and there, and that's great. But the best award I ever got was the letter from a woman who had given a death notification about her daughter too, where she appreciated that moment. And I'm like, that's the why. And if you can stay grounded with the why of policing, those moments of gratitude to have the grace and appreciation for how you can actually affect people's lives, that to me is the power of policing. And so when you step away from the job, you can say, you know what, did a pretty damn good job of this.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Blah, Blah, Blah Something Wellness podcast. I am your host, Tami Sharp, and I am joined by familiar faces, returning guests, and we are diving into the new monthly topic, which is a big one for everybody. We got a lot of really awesome guests coming up this month. We are talking about retirement realities. And so with that, we're going to do everybody's introductions. Greg, we'll start with you. Mike and Doug will go to you.
Thank you, Tammy. Greg Nottingham. I'm retired from a local sheriff's office here in the Phoenix area, and 31 years. I retired as a sergeant and currently working as the chief of staff for law enforcement coaching and master coach.
Thank you.
My name's Mike Lawson. I did 24 years with the San Diego Sheriff's Department. The last 10 or so working on wellness, peer support. I was peer support coordinator, and then helped actually start a wellness unit for the Sheriff's Department. Retired 2.5 years ago. And I am currently working for Chula Vista Police Department, which is just south of San Diego. And I am their one and only one-man wellness unit. I'm their wellness coordinator, and I work part-time doing that. Also master coach.
Yes, and coach. Doug.
Thanks, Tammy. Doug Shoemaker, retired chief of police out of both Grand Junction, Colorado, and Denton, Texas. 33 years on the job before I retired out. Most of my career was in the state of Missouri, where I currently live. Did a lot of work with the ICP. Was one of the elected vice presidents, and my focus actually was wellness and resilience, and I helped lead the annual ICP Officer Safety and Wellness Conference. So this topic, particularly as we evolve out of policing and into our new lives, is certainly something that's near and dear to me. So thanks for having me on again, and looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you. So I want to kind of back it up a little bit. I know Greg you've shared your retirement story, but I want you to kind of just go through that again, because a lot of times in law enforcement, everybody has their countdown clock, and you're waiting and waiting, and you think that once you retire, it's all going to be puppy dogs and rainbows, and you're going to be happy, you're going to go fishing, you're going to do some vacationing, woodworking, and that's not necessarily always the case. So, Greg, will you share a little bit about your retirement journey?
I will. How much time do we have?
You can't take up the whole podcast, but
Yeah, it was quite interesting, and going through the money mindset podcast that we did prior to these is really something that fits right in with it. And I ended up doing 31 years, and at 25 years, I thought I had a plan. I didn't want to retire. I wasn't ready to retire. I was having fun. I was working, and I was working a busy area and enjoyed work, and life was good. And then at 25 years in, everything went south. And it started getting really toxic and became really toxic over the next few years. We have our drop program here, where we can start funneling our retirement money into a drop program, and it earns money in stocks and things. And you have 5 years in the drop. I think they've upped that now to voluntary. You can do 7 if you want, but I don't know a lot about that. But so I entered the drop probably in just spent about a year and a half in drop, and just couldn't take it anymore. Just couldn't take it anymore. So I thought I had a plan, and I thought I was going to retire on my own terms. And the problem is that it just all hit at once, and everything got real toxic. And for the longest time, my wife would tell me, "You can't retire. You can't retire. You can't retire." And then when we got close to the 31-year mark, she realized that this job was killing me. The mental stress and even being a sergeant, I couldn't supervise my guys because I was too busy doing all of the paperwork to try to find out if they were, to check on them and to double check on them. And so it got really bad. And when I did retire, this particular department back then did not do a really good job with retirements. I had, I think at the time in my chain of command, at least 2 chiefs and then the sheriff. And when my retirement was announced, and it went to everybody in the sheriff's office, and when my retirement came, I had a handful of people that I worked with that showed up. I did have one chief show up, and he was from another department, so it was nice to see him there. But none of my chiefs showed up. The sheriff didn't show up, and it was basically a captain that I disagreed with a lot handed me a plaque and said, "There's the door." And it was very anticlimactic. And then you walk out the door and you're done. You're not a cop anymore. And if that was your plan, great. But I guess I didn't realize that until I walked out the door. And when I walked out the door, I'd lost my identity. I lost my passion. I lost my purpose. I lost my drive. And it took me a really long time to try to figure out who I was. And I always like to shout out to law enforcement coaching, and duty-driven deterioration is so important. That training is so important so that you're prepared for any kind of a crisis or issue that you come up with. And if I had been more prepared, it would have been a lot easier. But I spent probably the next few years trying to find myself, trying to get out of that total meltdown, uh, um, finally trying to find counseling to help me figure out who I was. And with law enforcement coaching and um, even Princeton's Pursuit for Acceptance gave me a new passion and purpose, but it took a while to get there and to pull me out of that funk and to finally realize who I was. And who I was a husband, a father, a papa to 3 beautiful grandkids. And once I realized who I was, life got a lot better. But I thought I was ready, but I wasn't. And if you think you're ready, when you walk out that door, you have to have a passion and purpose. You have to figure out what you're going to do next. You have to know who you are when you leave without the badge. Some people go right into another law enforcement position. That's great, but eventually you're going to walk away and you're going to need to know who you are. Financially, you need to be prepared. I was not, because I thought I had a good plan, but my plan disintegrated right in front of my eyes when the department got real toxic and it was time to go. Even though I didn't want to, I had to get out. And so my financial plan never saw, I never accomplished my financial plan. So I started late in my career with my financial plan, and so if you're not ready, you need to get ready. I don't care if you have a year on. I don't care if you have 30 years on. Make sure you're ready financially. Make sure you're ready psychologically, mentally. Know who you are without the badge, and know what you want to do and where you're going to go.
Thank you. Doug, I know, Mike, I'm going to come around, but Doug, what was your retirement journey? Did you have a retirement ceremony?
Yeah, I did. It was different, I think, in both the places where I was a chief, but also when I left Jeff City Police Department after nearly 27 years. So I did, but it's funny how you talk about having a plan and how you envision it, and you think of this great big thing, and then I think the greatest, probably most memorable thing that I think I remember on kind of we'll call it the negative side, is that once you walk out, It's no longer the same for you with that agency. It just is not. And it's not personal. That's the funny thing. It's not at all meant to be personal. It's just, that's the part of the business. And, once you spend like 27 years, like I did with Jeff City, once I'm out the door, you're out the door and on to the next and on to the next. And that's just the cycle of life in policing or any other job. And I think we put so much of our hearts and so much of our minds and so much of our lives, literally in some cases, into our job. And you have this identity wrapped into all that, and that, I am a police officer, and that's who I am, and it's part of my inner workings and all the things. And then once you step away from that, it's really a big adjustment. So when you do walk away, you really have to be ready for that transition out and have something else that you're passionate about. And this is why I would always tell new recruits when they would come in, make sure you have things outside of policing that you love and have friends outside of policing, and you pay attention to your family and those types of things too. Because if you just all in policing 24/7 for your entire career, I'm sorry, but you're just not going to have a whole lot when you leave, aside from some really cool memories and be proud that you served. But there's more to life afterwards as well too. So we want you to take advantage of that. But it's a mixed bag of things. And I hear stories like Greg's all the time. And I hear other stories where there's big ceremonies and all the pomp and circumstance and stuff. But at the end of the day, each time, once you're gone, you're gone. Like the door literally locks after you and you can't get back in most cases. So it's a strange feeling. But if you come to terms with that in advance, I think it helps ease that transition.
The door locking. So for Chris's retirement, he had a ceremony. I'm going to talk about the importance of ceremony, and Mike can share that too. But we had a great ceremony, and then we all went across the street to a restaurant for like the post party, and we were hanging out. He left like his gun and everything at the PD. And then when we were getting ready to go, he's like, "Oh, I gotta go get," and he's like, "Oh," and just the whole process, it started to hit him like, I have to call somebody, I can't get in. And right there, it started like, oh shit. Okay. Okay. And it's just a weird feeling for that. So I think and there's no training, and you can't really mentally prepare for it, but having the awareness and kind of even practicing, maybe like, hey, I'm going to walk out, lock the door on me, be like, okay, try. And then Mike, I was at your retirement ceremony, so I know, but share your retirement story.
Yeah, so just real quick, I did 24 years. I was hoping to do 25. Just rewind a little bit. So I was temporarily assigned to our headquarters to work on wellness projects. It was kind of a new thing. They kind of kept it secret. People are like, hey, why are you at headquarters? Like, it was very uncomfortable, but I was like, hey, at least we're moving the needle. Like, I'll deal with whatever. I mean, being at headquarters that's where all the IAs are. Like, that's where you get hired. It's just such a weird place to be. But I'm like, I feel like I'm supposed to be here. So I was able to work on some stuff, get some stuff done. Fast forward, there's staffing issues. We had a mandatory overtime. We were just short staffed, and I had to go back to my assignment. And it was kind of like, all right, thanks. We're done with you. And that's kind of the attitude I got. I don't know if they meant it to be like that, but it felt like that. I'm just being honest. And so I was like, well, crap, what do I do now? Like, we made so much movement. Like, I want to keep this going. And I wasn't getting a lot of support from the department. And it is what it is. We were in trying times, and just staffing was our main thing. And I get that. But the cool part was I had surrounded myself around chaplains and resources that I didn't really have probably 10, 12 years prior to that. And I was able to network with some of those people. Long story short, I met a chaplain I was friends with that was a chaplain for Chula Vista Police Department. And I asked him, I'm like, hey, like, what are you guys doing for wellness? And he's like, hey, it's just me, really. Like, we don't really have anything. We have peer support. But I was like, I go, hey, like, would you guys benefit from a wellness coordinator? He's like, yeah, that sounds great. Let me put you in contact with the lieutenant. Anyways, long story short, like, and the funny part was I was kind of pushing it, but I was also retired too. So like, I was like, yeah, if it works out, great. If not, like, I still have all these other things I want to do and I'm going to do. But anyways, long story short, it worked out. We created a position and the city was like, what is this? Like, and for people outside of California, a few years ago, each California agency got a grant. It literally got deposited into your bank account, and you had to use it for wellness. And everybody did different things. I feel like my department, we used it well. We hired a person to have a dedicated person to work on that, and it's been game changer. Do I have my struggles? Yes, and we could go into that. As far as retirement, I definitely could have done better planning looking back. Ironically, I'm about to teach a retirement seminar to my police department, hoping to kind of spread the word. We're going to bring back retirees to have a Q&A. Like, yes, I figured it out, but there's definitely things I could have done better. Um, People are like, what do you mean you plan it? And I see it so clearly. Obviously, Greg, Doug, like, we're such good planners in law enforcement. We do ops plans. If somebody gets hurt, we're going to this hospital. Like, that's all planned out. Your plan B, your plan C. And for retirement, we don't do anything. You kind of just figure it out. You hope you know somebody that's been through it. You could ask them. And so a lot of times that's how we figure it out. But I have friends that are struggling. They're bored and they didn't have a plan. I keep going back to the plan. And people are like, what do you mean a plan? I'm like, yes, you have to have a plan. And that's going to be different for everyone, depending on your financial. But yeah, we got to do better. I think we're all in agreement. Departments need to do better. And we're hoping we could move the needle. And hopefully this podcast, springs some of that into action.
There's so many points. I want to tackle a couple different topics. So one, for the chiefs and sheriffs, the command staff and leaders that are listening, I just want to emphasize, and I'm probably going to bring this up in every single episode, it is so important for you to show up. I understand you guys are all busy, but when you have an officer or whoever that is in the department that's given 20 to 30 years of their life, if you can't figure out how to take 30 seconds, 30 minutes to go and thank them, it might not be a big deal to you. And I understand that you might be stressed because you're losing somebody and now you got to fill a spot and all of these things are going on. But that's one of the biggest complaints and the most noticeable things that happens at a retirement, whether it's a ceremony or not, is that my chief didn't even say anything. Like Greg said, they handed me a plaque, thanks. In law enforcement, everything you guys do is so rooted in ceremony. You guys go through the academy, you're proud, you go through ceremony, FTO, you go through all of these things, you promote. There's ceremony and there's pomp and circumstance and there's pride. And at the end of your life career, you literally are laying your life on the line. You get a attaboy bye. And then we can talk about insurance, all the other crap that falls after retirement that you get a rude awakening to. But if you can't, this is my thing again for the chiefs and sheriffs, if you can't make it to a retirement ceremony, an email, a phone call, a Zoom message of, hey, thank you. We appreciate you. We wish you anything will do. You won't even understand. And they won't, most of the time they won't, they'll just say thanks with a poker face. They're going to go home and be like, that was really cool. I really appreciate that my chief did that. Doug, now I don't know, did you show up or what did you do for yours that were retiring?
Yeah, I mean, we had, I think we had struggles internally of people attending retirements. And I don't know why that is. I think we always made a big deal out of it, unless I was out of town, like at a conference or something. Then we tried to maneuver around to get as many command staff members there as possible, because that was like a thing for us at every single one. And we actually had really great showings for all the retirements, because we did have ceremonies. The funny thing, I think, is that some people, when they leave, I think they're in such a state of mind, they don't want it. Like they will say, you're not going to have a party for me. You're not going to have a cake, nothing. Yeah. I'll have my own little thing with my own closest friends, and that's it. Just, we don't even care if you mail me my certificate or whatever. I'm like, well, that's a strange way to go out. But I mean, do what you got to do, and that's fine. We would never push it on anybody, but I definitely recall some of those where people said, I definitely don't want a ceremony, and others that really appreciated just not the attention, but the acknowledgement of the service that they had done for their communities for so long. And I always took it a step further, and I didn't want just the police department, but sometimes, members of the fire department would show up, because we work hand in hand with them. Members of City Hall, when I could get a city manager to come over. And my last city manager, my city manager in Grand Junction, he was great, and he would try and bring as many department directors over with him to each one of these things. And they did a really nice job of it. And I think that was a difference maker. So the culture there, I think, was very, very healthy with that. I think it says a lot that, when you've got the city manager and the city attorney and the city clerk and the finance director and the parks director, they all show up for these things, and they were all very, very good people, and they would take time out of their schedules to do it. That says a lot. And so I think our women and men deserve that. It's not a big ask, just like you said, Tami.
Well, and so for those, because we hear that all the time too, like, nope, I'm not going to have any kind of, I'm just, give me my gun, my badge, I'm out. Bye. I don't want anything. And I want to break down the psychology behind that, because there's a hidden fear. One, Chris thought this, and when Chris is on one of the episodes, he'll share about his retirement experience. But one, there's a fear that nobody's going to show up. I'm just going to be there and it's going to be embarrassing. Nobody's going to show up, or they're going to either be cheering that I'm leaving or whatever. There's all sorts of stuff that goes into it. And you might be disgruntled at that point. You might be mad at the department. There's all sorts of feelings that go into it. The retirement ceremony is so important because it puts a period on the end of the sentence. It gives you closure, but not just for you, but for your family. So this is what I know Chris is going to talk about this on one of the episodes, but your family lost you from, school activities and holidays and nights and all of this stuff. And if you do a retirement ceremony and you do it well, and reach out to us. If you're like, I don't even know where to start with the retirement ceremony, I will say this. I'll give a shout out to Gilbert PD, because they really do a great job with their retirement ceremonies. We've been part of many. Chris has emceed a few. He had his own experience. And some of the things that they do in theirs, one, they do the stories from families and friends talking about, hey, if anybody wants to come up, got a funny story, whatever. They do a slideshow, which is great. And that is really impactful. That's the one that's for the family, because if you have somebody in your department that's assigned to this, to create the slideshow, you get everybody to send all these pictures in and video in. And then the person that's retiring, it's the first time that they get to see it. And so there's all these memories that come, and then the family and the kids get to see it and be like, oh, that's what was going on. And, Chris saw videos. he uses them in his training. He used to pride himself on only getting like 2 to 4 hours of sleep. And so there was many times that he fell asleep at his desk when he was a detective, and that was against that you'd get in trouble for that. So nobody ever say anything, but his buddies would film him. And so in his retirement ceremony, it was all these videos of him falling asleep at work. And he was like, oh my God, a little embarrassing, but it was super funny. And then what we would do, I'm going to give Chris and I a little shout out, because we did some pretty epic moves with the retirement ceremonies. We kind of one-upped each other. We had first our friend Mike Olson that passed away. His retirement ceremony, we ended up having cameos from different wrestlers, old school wrestlers, and shout outs for him. I don't know if anybody knows Honky Tonk Man. Honky Tonk Man, old school wrestler. He did a video and gave him like his Hall of Fame ring and all sorts of, it was just really, really cool. So we did that. And then we had Rob Schneider actually showed up for a retirement ceremony and did a little comedy shtick that almost got us kicked out, but it was great. It was definitely memorable. But we had some fun with it, and it's just so important. So I know here's my thing. If you are that person that's just like, no, not going to do it, what I would ask you to do is reach out to our team or anybody that's retired and talk it through of like, why is it that you really don't want to have that ceremony? And it may not be at your department, but having your friends and family get together and celebrate you, it is important to do that. It's my little.
And Tami, that popularity thing, you're afraid people aren't going to show up. It's a real thing, because during the time that probably my last 5 years up until retirement, if you were one of the in guys, they would have a huge ceremony for you, and everybody would show up, and so it was a party, and everybody was coming, and so if you weren't one of the popular guys, which apparently I wasn't, nobody showed, and to have no one show, it just kind of put an explanation point on the end of that, because it's like nobody came. I mean, I had my squad, I had some people from my division show up, but no command staff came, and apparently I wasn't one of the popular ones with command staff, so nobody took the time to come to mine. And I'd been to all the ones, or not all the ones, but a few of the ones in the past where you got, we had a lot of chiefs. You had all the chiefs show up, you had the sheriff show up, and so it was a little insulting at the end as well. So to pour salt in that wound when you walk out the door, that nobody bothered to show up. And I will have to say now that my department under a new sheriff, I know for a fact that they're doing better. I think, Tami, they've taken some of your advice. I think that I know for a fact, I've seen the videos. We have a lot of people retire all the time, and if the sheriff's not in every one of them, his chiefs are there and somebody's representing, and that's what they need. They need somebody to represent and just say thank you.
Well, and we got to have a really cool experience. So because we've known Greg for so long, and that was a thorn in the side that he didn't get that recognition, and it impacted him, right? So Chris and I are really big on ceremony and recognition, and so we actually, because Greg worked with who is now Sheriff of Maricopa, Sheriff Sheridan. We had lunch with him at one point, and he had shared like his retirement it was the same experience. There was nothing. And so he had also had his journey with that. And so he went above and beyond and did a really cool thing. We got to surprise Greg at one of our trainings and gave him a surprise retirement ceremony. And Jerry came and recognized him and gave him a plaque. We gave him a plaque, and got to be there. And the cool thing is, I always say that your pain is part of your purpose. And we go through things and it sucks when you're going through it, but sometimes things need to happen. So for the sheriff's office, they did not take retirement seriously or, recognize it. But because of Greg's experience and sheriff's experience, like you just said, there's a new sheriff in town and there's a new way of doing things, and they understand the importance of it. So I think that was just it was just a cool thing that we got to do, and that you had that little endpoint finally. So, and then Mike. Oh, what, Greg?
I was just going to say, and even if that even sounds a little silly, it really wasn't to me. It was very impactful to me, and it did help put the period at the end of my career, even this long afterwards. It helped me put the period at the end of my career, and just kind of put me in a different space with our department, and knowing that even after all these years that Jerry would show up and do that. So that was something that was it helped a lot.
And then Lawson had his retirement ceremony. So we had talked about, because I knew he was going to retire. So I made sure, I was like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You going to party? You going to do it? And again, we take it serious. So Chris and I got in the car and we drove out there for his retirement ceremony, and we were there, and it was awesome. It was really fun.
Yeah. So I don't know if I told you this, Tami. So my department actually had something at lunch there was actually 3 of us that were retiring, and they recognized us. But like, if I just had that alone, I would be like, oh, that was kind of lame. Like, and no high brass showed up, like whatever. It was, I think maybe assistant chief maybe showed up, but if I would have just had that alone, I think I would have had kind of that sour taste. But I'm kind of a planner. So that same day, I actually planned a happy hour. So it was people at my work, professional staff, sworn staff. We had a happy hour. And then that same weekend is when the party that you went to. So I actually had 3 parties, and I had that one at my house. I had a DJ there, I had a Fred's band play. It was pretty awesome. So looking back, it was important for me to have all 3 of those. Like, it might sound crazy, like, geez, you had 3 retirement parties, but each one had the people that were supposed to be there. And obviously I wanted my friends there. The one at my house, that was more like family and close friends. The happy hour was like my work people outside of that lunch ceremony. So yeah, looking back, I had to, like, I just realized that. I'm like, I actually had 3, and I'm glad I did. Like, it just helped kind of putting that period and then moving on. Like, I left on good terms. Did I retire maybe a year earlier? Yes. But the retirement party is huge. Like you said, Tami, to celebrate those just accomplishments. And I think law enforcement, sometimes you take those for granted, but it's so important to do those and not have those regrets.
So moving from the retirement ceremony, I think we've emphasized the point. It's super important. Have it, do it, show up for it, celebrate. Now let's talk about retirement realities. You're now retired. Then what? How was it for you guys? Doug, how was it for you, like the first week after retirement?
Well, I think the reality of, you're no longer wearing the badge and you're no longer a part of things. It's a strange sensation because people visualize the retirement as like, I'm free. I'm going to go get coffee where I want to. I'm going to sleep in late. I'm going to work out every day and do all this stuff. I mean, whatever it happens to be, it's very different than that. And I think it's because of, we talked about a plan and we talked about that, what that looks like. And no matter, I think, how much you plan the reality of stepping away from that routine, that camaraderie, which is, I think, a huge part of what we do. You're not around the folks that you worked with before anymore. And I think the thing after the week after, and then the weeks that follow, you have communication with people and people you've made friends with, but slowly, and just telling you folks, with time, that communication will become less and less and less and less until it's like, God, I haven't talked to him in a year, kind of thing. And before, you were talking every day or dealing with things and going out to lunch and things were great and all this stuff. And it's, again, you just have to get it out of your head that it's not personal. It's just part of the culture of what we do. So I think thank goodness I have a very supportive family and a friend network that is great. And I think I relied upon that to just sort of keep the sanity as I transition to something totally different in my life, whatever that, looks like now and whatever it continues to look like for me. So I think just stepping away from the badge and not being that guy or that gal anymore, I think it's just it's a reality, and you have to, it's coming. And you have to be able to be ready for that and anticipate that at least it's coming. How do I best prepare for those moments? And it's difficult to do at best, but you have to start planning now. I mean, not like if you just started, if you're a rookie cop, don't worry, you don't have to plan for this right now. But down the road, when you start thinking about it, okay, what's that actually look like? So yeah.
Well, and you said a key thing. So that drop in communication, it's not personal. And I think a lot of people kind of take it that way, but realizing there's a couple different thought processes that go into that. So one, they're still active. If you've left, they're still busy. They're still in the thick of it, the stress of it. And there's probably a little bit more stress because now they're down this person. And so they're trying to compensate and fill in and do all these different things. So it's not that they're not reaching out because they don't care. They're still in it. And there's also a misconception. It's like, well, you've made it. You're probably sitting on a beach sipping a Mai Tai in a hammock. So we don't need to reach out to you, right? That's not always the case. A lot of times you're sitting in the recliner watching TV or just getting inundated with news and negativity of all of this stuff. And now you can't do anything about it. And you're just sitting there like, I don't know. The other thing that we don't talk about for the spouses, you're home all the time. And that can be, it's a learning curve. That's how I'll say that. It's a learning curve, whether female, male, I don't care what the dynamic, I don't care what you identify, I don't care what your relationship status is. If you've had somebody that is used to their home routine and used to you not being there, and now all of a sudden you're there all the time, it can get it's a learning curve. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have something, I mean, my spouse, she's younger than me, so she was going to continue to work, and I didn't think that was going to be that big a deal. Oh, that was a big deal. I mean, she was happy for me, but we didn't really have that conversation like what's that going to look like? We were just going to try to figure it out. And there was definitely times I'm like, dang, is she even happy that I retired and like did all these years? And she was, but because she was still working, like that's a thing, folks. Like, don't think it's just going to be like, oh, you just go amongst like doing your retirement stuff and that's going to be okay. So that was a definitely adjustment for me. Obviously I had to pick up things to do more at home, cleaning the house, things like that. And I kind of knew that, but that the reality hit that like, hey, my spouse is still working. I need to pick up some of the slack maybe that I wasn't doing before, like big time. And some people that's a reality check. Like, well, wait a minute, I wasn't doing that before. Guess what? Like, want to stay together, it's like you're gonna learn to do that. And so that's just something that I'm gonna present my seminar is, yeah, if your spouse is still working and you're not, like, have those conversations beforehand, like what's that gonna look like? And granted, you have to kind of go through it to see, but my wife and I were fine, but it took a little adjustment. Right after I retired. And then just real quick, my sleep was affected. People are like, what are you talking about? Like, why would your sleep, like now you could sleep in or do whatever? No, my mind was still stuck on that 5 hours that I'm good. Like, and I was waking up, I was having trouble going to sleep. And man, that was rough. I'm not going to lie. So I'm better now, but I had to like start having a sleep pattern and bringing in sleep sounds and having a schedule. And like, I never thought I would have problem with sleep. And again, I'm better now, but that's an adjustment. Just get ready for that because your mind's just used to that going off of those 5 hours or however many hours you get. And I'm realizing how important sleep is, especially as you get older. There's some old people on this panel, me included.
What are you talking about?
Sleep, like all the conferences I go to, Doug could probably attest to this. I had one presenter say, if I could just present on one topic, it would be sleep and just helping people with sleep, like the one thing you could do wellness wise. And we all know it's important, but I think most of us, we get by with what we get by with during our careers. And, I think we do okay, but it's not ideal, but it is what it is. So anyways, like just keep that in mind. Your sleep schedule might get a little messed up when you do that transition to retirement.
Yeah, and Mike, that is a retirement reality with the spouse, and my wife's still working. And now the things that I want to do, or even when I just retired, I wanted her with me. So I want to go do this, I want to do that, I want to travel. Well, she can't get the time off from work. She doesn't have enough vacation time. So I'm not going to travel without her. So I end up sitting home and not traveling and not doing the things I want to do because she has to work. So that's all crazy too. I think that the most difficult thing once you retire is life insurance and medical insurance. Because when I retired, I had a great life insurance, or before I retired, I had a great life insurance policy. If something happened to me on the job, my wife, my kids, their kids, everybody was going to be taken care of without a doubt. The minute I walk out that door, that life insurance policy is gone. And now I've got to go out and find my own. And insurance is just a whole nother world. I don't know about departments around the country, but I know that my department, you don't work here anymore, you don't get our medical insurance. You can pay for it on your own if you want, which is $2,000, $3,000 a month. And that's just not practical. You can't afford that. So my wife is still working, thank goodness, because of medical insurance. Wants to retire, almost 40 years in law enforcement, wants to retire, needs to retire. I need her to retire, but because of medical insurance, we're stuck. And until we can find a solution to private medical insurance, she'll keep working so that we have medical insurance.
I think insurance was one of the rudest slaps in the face that Chris and I got, because when you retire, yes, you have your pension. It's great. He did drop. You thought we had all this money. You get penalized if you touch that money. You get taxed if you touch that money. You get taxed on on your pension. Your pension is less than what you were making, and there's no overtime. So all the people that are pissed off that they have to do mandatory overtime, I want you to take a pause and be thankful that you have that money, and go back and watch last month's episodes about money mindset and go do something smart with it. Because when you retire, it gets real really quick. Because like you guys just said, insurance, yeah, you might have COBRA and it might give you a little discount, but if you have kids and you have family, it's going to be for a good insurance policy. It's starting around $1,200 a month. I don't know what that is across the country. I'm just talking about our personal experience. It's about $1,200 to $2,500 out of pocket every month. And as a holistic, this is where I get woo and frustrated. As a holistic wellness practitioner, holistic modalities are not covered under insurance. Those are what we're going to use unless we really need to go get labs or go to the ER. We need ER coverage. If there's an emergency, we need all of that. A lot of the insurance policies don't even include ER. I'm like, how is that even possible for $1,200 a month that if we go to the ER, we're still screwed? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And so it is a rude awakening. It's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. I would just say, I try not, well, whatever. Just don't do it on your own. I put my number into the wrong spot and I got 800 calls in a couple days of scams and spam. So find an insurance person expert and have them help you do that, and plan for it. We didn't plan for that. And we've been, as a small business owner, when you run a business, everybody assumes you have money. It is the opposite. Oh, Doug, what's your take on all of that?
Well, yeah, you're not wrong, and it's everything just changes. So whether it's whether it's being home and your spouse is still working, or if your spouse is not working, the fact that you are home together and in the same spaces, whereas there was a routine that was established before, now you're home all the time. It's just different, and you have to adapt to that. And those conversations ahead of time really do need to take place. This is where the value of having other interests outside of policing really kicks in. And that's where you can spend that extra time. I hear from people all the time and they say, hey, I'm thinking about going to this kind of line of work and I think I'll have a job after I retire. Okay, that's great. Make sure you're really passionate about what you're going into and make sure you're ready to make that change, because the change is going to be totally different than what you've done before, unless it's another police related directly, that type of thing. But if you're going into something totally different, like I know some cops that have gone into real estate, or they've gone into computer business, or even consulting to some extent, or whatever else it happens to be, that plan really needs to be kind of set. And you still have to have the mindset around that there's going to be changes, and that they're going to be uncomfortable changes, because you do a job after you retire. And let's be honest, when I say retire, I don't mean 5 years on the job. That's not retirement to me. It's just not. I mean, you're talking a long time wearing the badge, and and you're so used to it. So the stresses of doing the job all the time, while they're stresses, they're comfortable stresses because they're familiar stresses. And when you go into something totally different, then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, 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 I don't know how to handle this because this is not what I'm used to. It's a very stark reality. And I think having those extra hobbies, having the things that you like to do outside, and having things you're looking forward to doing, and having that kind of plan can really be helpful. And, the insurance thing is a real thing. You talk Medicaid at 65. Well, when you retire, you're probably not 65. You're probably well before then, 50, 50, maybe 45, 50, even 55. But that still is a 10-year gap. And if you don't have health insurance, some states do that for you, lifetime insurance, which is amazing. But a lot of states don't. And you have your pension and that's it. And insurance is not cheap. So you have to find a way to fund that and to figure out what that's going to look like for you. So all these things are very stark realities. It's not only just the what am I going to do with myself and my time kind of thing, but it's also, hey, how are we going to continue doing what we're doing based upon my retirement and based upon the other financial needs ahead, and then what's that look like for the future, for the remainder of my career, whatever that happens to be.
Yeah, and I think so many people are just in the we'll wing it, we'll figure it out when we get there, and then you get there and yeah, you can figure it out. And there are some parts of it that you are going to figure out. You can talk about it, but until you're really there, um, you know, I won't say who was at this dinner, but there was a few of us that were at this dinner. No, and the wives were all talking about how we needed to plan play dates for our retirees, because it's just like the boredom that comes in, the like, what do you guys do? And you guys, like you said, you guys spend so much time training for highly specific skills that are not applicable in any other profession, really. And a lot of times, especially if you went from military into law enforcement and now you're out completely, you have a skill set and it's just like, you're not going to go work at Starbucks. That's just not the reality of it. Because you're going to, and maybe some people do, they open their own coffee shops or whatever. And the thing is, when we talk about this, again, passion and purpose, Chris always talks about being a doorman at Walmart, because that is what the old school generation used to say. They were going to retire and they're going to become doormen at Walmart because they didn't have to think. And we're not knocking on doormen at Walmart. If that brings you purpose and you love that, keep going. The reality for most people, that's not going to be fulfilling. And it's not just law enforcement. You know, I owned a bar on Maui. I was very proud of it. I loved it. I only did it for a window of time, a couple years. But I was so like, that's my identity. I was so proud of that. And so when I didn't have that anymore, my next job was I worked loss prevention at Kmart, and I was not good at it. I didn't I didn't make it past the 90-day probationary period. I did not like it. I walked around Kmart crying on the phone because I was supposed to be like a secret shopper for 10-hour days and not get caught. And there was just so much that went into that. I was absolutely miserable. And it took me a couple years of my identity was when somebody asked me, what do I do? I said, I used to be a bar owner. I didn't say I worked at Kmart. I didn't say I did any of this. I used to be this. And I did not know who I was. And I wasn't doing anything that I was proud of. And that brought me joy. And I spun out for a couple years until I figured out, oh, I like helping people. I like healing people. But I had to go through that. So sometimes you do need to go through, breakdown to breakthrough. Again, your pain is part of your purpose. And the stuff that you're going through, it's going to get you to where you need to be. So that's also a reason why there are so many, all of us here, and so many people that are in the wellness space for law enforcement teaching. You got firearms instructors, you got all of these companies out there that are retired law enforcement, still law enforcement adjacent, because there's the pride and just the knowledge, the skill set. So for those listening, when you see the companies that are former law enforcement teaching, understand, listen to them. They know some stuff. They've been through some stuff, and they're teaching usually, if they're law enforcement. If they're random companies, I got a whole nother tangent on that. But most of them are teaching from a place of passion, purpose, and from heart and experience. Mike, what you got?
Yeah, there's so many things. So I wrote an article in Police One about retirement, and I'm definitely not a retirement expert. It's just more things to think about. And that's what I'm going to be teaching in my seminar is there's just a lot. And I think, Doug, you hit it, having your purpose and having things outside of your profession. I think we hear that all the time, but do we actually do it? And just like you said, Tami, for me, it was I used to go paddleboarding. I hadn't gone paddleboarding in years. And it wasn't until probably about 8-10 years out where I started to bring some of those things back. And what I didn't realize, I was setting myself up for retirement in a weird way. I didn't necessarily plan it that way. And lots of other things I was doing that I wasn't doing before, like supporting myself with people I could talk to, people with law enforcement coaching, chaplains. I sat next to a chaplain for it was probably 16 years. Never even really talked to the guy. And I finally things changed in my life, and I don't know what it was, but I just started talking with him. And I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's been next to me almost my whole career, and I'm just now talking to him. Fast forward, I'm best friends with that guy. I'm able to go to him when things are going rough, when I was with my department. And so what I'm trying to get at is support yourself with people you can trust. Peer support's good, but that's not always for everyone. Having maybe a more neutral person, like a chaplain, a coach, like what we do with our company, having somebody that knows the job, but doesn't directly work for your department. That's what I was missing. Looking back, I was like, wow, and it was a game changer for me. It just changed my perspective. I'm still working on things, but looking back, I tell Tami this all the time, the old me versus the new me, I look back and I'm like, geez, if that was the old me, I would have done this or that. But the new me, because now I have that support, has been huge. And it's helped with my retirement. It's helped with just professionally, personally, and you have to work at it. at it too. Like it's not going to just come to you. Like you have to work at it. You have to plan it. And again, it sounds weird, but we're used to planning. Like it's okay to plan your retirement, investing in, like I live in California. Just your pension alone, like you're not going to be super comfortable with that. So luckily I was able to find a part-time job where it's given me purpose, and then it's helped offset some of other expenses, again, like our medical, things like that, where my purpose is driven, and it's also serving to help financially, which where I live, like that's what I know I needed to do, and that's what I'm doing.
Really quick, as we're rounding around the corner to wrapping this up a little bit, I was thinking about this week with knowing that you guys were going to be the guests on here. My question is, you guys made it through 20 plus 30 years in the career. And I know all of you guys on the outside of this career. And you guys are some of the nicest people. Like, Doug, I love your energy. Like, you're just positive and chill and happy and nice. Like, you guys are all, and I know you, my team, like, you guys are my team. I love you guys. I can't, I was trying to, I was actually trying to envision you guys like arresting somebody and having to go like full hands on. And I'm like, I can't see it with you guys, but you guys have had those experiences. There are a lot of guys that are hard. They're salty, they're pissed, they're hard. They have that energy, kind of like Pigpen from Charlie Brown, with just this dust cloud of anger around them. So what are some of your guys' secrets, or not so secret, that got you through the career and not being assholes, to be just be blunt?
Well, I think that I'm a little different now than I was when I was on the job. I have been told that I look scary. I've been told that I'm a scary person. I've had friends come up to me I've met other friends through, mutual friends, and my buddy would come up to me and say, "Hey, so and so, they were worried about you because they said you look really scary." And I think I was a great cop, and I was a hard charger, and I worked hard, and for most of my career, I lived by the philosophy is you ask somebody, you tell somebody, and then you make somebody. And sometimes all three of those are happening all at once. But I think that after retiring is where I think I've started to realize that probably close to the end of my career and then retiring, I started to realize that, you don't have to be like that. You don't have to be that tough guy or that hard ass or that old salty guy. And it makes your life harder, and it makes yourself miserable, acting like that, being like that. And I think family and faith have a lot to do with that. And the new side, the change in my personality, and I think that that was really important to me, to find that happy person, and find the person that's not going to go out and rip you out of a car window if you look at me sideways. So I think there's a lot that have changed since my days on the job.
Yeah, so like looking back at my career, like, yeah, I remember times people were like, "Yeah, you're kind of a dick," and I'm like, "I am," and like, it's funny. Like I look back and like I really had to like look in the mirror, and I've lost friends to suicide in the sheriff's department, and I look back like those things sucked, but like those things changed me and for the better. That was when I started talking to people where I didn't do before. Like I didn't handle some of those very well. I lost a really good friend in the line of duty early in my career. And I was just looking around like, wait, what do I do now? And I stuffed, and I didn't get any of that out. And so there wasn't like one specific day, but I kind of used about 10 years before I retired. Like, and I look back, it was when I started to just talk to people. I started to go to therapy. Like, if you would have told me that, I'd be like, you're crazy. I'm not going to therapy. But I look, and it was just getting some of that out. And I think as cops, like, our type A personalities, and we have to be tough and stuff. Once I was able to just kind of release that and be vulnerable, it was game changer for me. And it wasn't easy. Like there was some pride in that where I was like, I have to be a certain way. But then I look back, I'm like, no, I don't. And if you were watching this, like, yeah, you have to go to your calls and take care of business. Like, I'm not saying don't do that, but there's ways you can do it. You know, sometimes you have to be a dick. Let's be honest. But having those resources, having those people to talk to, like I keep going back to that, but that's what changed me. That's what, like, the person I am today, like I had to go through those things, but I also had to make a change, and change is hard, right? Like we don't like change, but looking back, that was a difference in how I am today.
Yeah, I think for me, it's I guess I was never really a traditional cop in a lot of ways, and I always took a different approach to a lot of things, and I think maybe that's helped me get to where I got to in my career, because I just wasn't I guess I wasn't afraid to break a mold of, the hard-nosed cop. And yeah, let's be honest. I mean, we've all been in the bar fights. We've gone in, and full admission, when I started becoming a cop, I love the show cops. Like the adrenaline rush of just watching the show, and I'm like, you're going to pay me to do that? Where do I sign up? Like seriously, this is amazing. And so yeah, that's the draw, but the reality of it, and I talk about it in a few of the talks that I do, is the moments that we take away from this job, I think, that are so impactful, really have nothing to do with those high adrenaline types of things, but rather with in ways that we can really help people, I think, through their darkest times. And that takes a lot of compassion and empathy. And it's something that I think we're getting better at in the profession. And I am not at all suggesting that we're all, everything is just happy and all the time. It's far from it in this world. At a moment's notice, your life can be taken from you at a car stop, at a domestic, on the way to a domestic, all the things. So by all means, officer safety first and foremost, period. I'm not suggesting anything different. But there are moments, you go and give a death notification, for example, to somebody. And if you could be there during that person's most difficult time of their life, potentially, and you can show some level of compassion and empathy in what you do. And later on down the road, like in my case, like, I got a few medals here and there, and that's great. But the best award I ever got was the letter from a woman who I'd give a death notification about her daughter to, where she appreciated that moment. And I'm like, that's the why. And if you can stay grounded with the why of policing, those moments of gratitude, to have the grace and appreciation for how you can actually affect people's lives, that to me is the power of policing. And so when you step away from the job, you can say, you know what, did a pretty damn good job of this. And I can walk away and say, hopefully others that will follow will do the same. And I did my part and then some, and I gave it my all. And you know what? Now it's about me and what's good for me and what I can do. And so I think if you walk away skeptical, you're just shortening your lifespan, and whether you want to admit it or not, but you are. And so now it's time to really go out and live, and to take those memories, those moments of gratitude, and say, I did a good job, and it's time to do some other things that I think are maybe really important to me. And let's focus on me a little bit here too.
Well, I love that. There's so much in there that I'm just like, yes, 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 yes. Thank you. Um, One, what's your why? I mean, you work with Simon, and his book is What's Your Why. So anybody, I'll put the link for the book in the description of this. Read it. Watch the TED Talk. What's your why? Like, why are you doing this? Why are you on these calls? What's going on? Look deeper. Um, Leading with your why. Departments should be sitting down and reevaluating your why, especially if you're struggling. And yes, you have certain quotas and budgets and all of these things that you need to make, but what's your why? What's the true why? And Greg, you said people used to think that you were scary, and I kind of laugh, because I think one of the reasons that I'm able to do what I do as a civilian, coming into a room full of, coming in, working with cops is not easy. I'm trying to get you guys to talk about your feelings. I don't have an easy job. And it can be intimidating to walk into a room. Every time we walk into a new room with new cops, it is the back of the room, arms crossed. Who are these people? What's this bullshit? I don't want to be here. And we have to earn our street cred real quick. But my dad was an old school, salty, tough guy cop. And a lot of my friends never wanted to come over my house because they were terrified of him. They were so intimidated, and he just seemed like a scary dude. But he was my dad. And I knew he was a teddy bear, and I knew he was a softie. And I can see, and then because I'd go hang out with all these other cops, like, I know you guys are all, you know, nice people underneath the hard facade. I also saw my dad go hands on, and I could see that oh shit, don't mess with him. He is a tough guy. But just having the strong sense of why, the community policing, I think we've really come away from. I know it depends on where you're at. Big cities, it's very hard. Smaller communities, it's easier to do that. My dad was a great community cop, and I've talked about that before. But getting back in the little positive things, I want to stop. Okay. Like 5 things going through my head right now, because one of the things that we do to wrap up our trainings is we go around and we have everybody share a positive story, something that they did that impacted someone, or someone impacted them, just like the story that you shared, Doug. Because you guys, especially in the wellness space for law enforcement at the conferences, it's wellness, but there is so much focus on the problem. We know the statistics. Anybody that doesn't know the suicide statistics for law enforcement is living under a rock, because it is thrown in your face all the time. It's the hardest job. It's the thankless job. You guys are, experience more trauma than the normal person. These are all narratives that run on just constant. And you don't get to celebrate your wins. You don't get to be like, hey, I saved somebody's life today. You kind of just be like, shrug it off like it wasn't a big deal. We were just at the Wounded Blue Survival Summit in Vegas. And at the end, we had the room of people. And I was like, how many people in here have saved a life? The people that raised their hand. Let's give them a round of applause. Let's celebrate that. How many of the officers in here have helped get somebody resources, whether it was addiction out of a domestic violence? How many people have helped somebody do that? Show of hands. Let's give you guys an applause, because we don't celebrate those things. And you guys have no idea how big of an impact you have on people's lives when you have the compassion and you take the time to be there for that person. So thank you for doing that. I could go off on, I have so much more, but I want to wrap it up because I want to honor everybody's time, and we're just getting started on this topic. So thank you guys for being here. Let's true around robin style. Let's go around. If somebody just tunes into this last part, what is your little piece of advice for them when it comes to retirement? Whoever wants to start.
I'll go. Well, Doug's brought it up. Mike's echoed it, and I'm going to echo it again because it's that important. And I think that having friends outside of the department, having friends outside of work. When I started in '85, they weren't telling us that, and if they did, we weren't listening. But the people that I worked with were my friends, and I got to a point. The first 5 years, I hated people. I didn't want to be around people from church. I didn't want to be around neighbors. I didn't want to be around anybody. When I was off, I secluded myself and stayed away from people. I hated people. And I didn't do any activities outside of maybe some things with family, sometimes if I wasn't working. And it's just not a good way to live. So make sure you have friends and hobbies and things to do that are not cop related. Friends that are not cop related. Learn how to be friends with other people, and you're going to get all of the. Well, you ever have to shoot anybody? And tell me, oh, you must have all the good stories, And it's like, okay, yeah, just get through that, get past that, and have friends outside of law enforcement, and start preparing now for your retirement. It's going to come so fast. If you've got a year on, if you've got 5 years on, if you've got 18 years on, and you're working for that 20, everybody says that 20 years on, now the department goes on probation, and I'm going to just walk away if I have to. Well, that's harder to do than you think. So start preparing now. Start preparing financially. Start preparing mentally and emotionally. When you walk out that door and you're not a police officer, you're not a deputy sheriff anymore. Have that other passion and purpose. Know who you are when you leave, and celebrate your career. Celebrate the end of your career, and be ready to step into that next thing. But know who you are, and know who you are before you leave without the badge. That's so important that I've seen so many people over the years that they walk out that door without the badge, and just like myself, I was lost. I was absolutely lost. No one ever told me any of this stuff when I was younger, or a baby cop, or growing up as a cop. No one ever said stuff like that. And when I walked out the door, it's like, what do I do now? Who am I now? Have that figured out before you retire, and then be ready to turn that page and take that next step.
I'll go next. Yeah, for me, the planning part is huge. I would suggest 5 years out, run different numbers through your retirement plan. I would maybe do a 3-year, 4-year, 5-year. And a lot of times you will see, like, I think sometimes they're like, oh, I have to do this many years, I have to do 30. But when you actually run the numbers and physically, like, actually see what those look like, that could change. So until you do that, you don't know. So definitely run the numbers different times. Don't just do one date. Maybe do a couple different ones. When you retire, my old apartment, we have a breakfast club that meets once a month. It's awesome. I'm not able to go every single time, but it's really cool as a wellness coordinator, just seeing the people that, like, how much they actually need it, and they need that fellowship that maybe they're not getting. And then I just keep going back to, like, what's your hobby? Like, what's, if you could just do one thing, like, what would that be? And maybe that's fishing, maybe that's hunting. And, like, yeah, I used to do that. For me, it was paddleboarding, pickleball I picked up, but those are my go-to. Start doing those before you retire, because you will see, like, how much happiness it gives you. I mean, if I could go paddleboarding every single day, obviously living in Southern California, like, just being on the water, like, that is, once I'm finished with that, I feel so much better. And the rest of the day, it's just like, let's go. Like, and I'm just being honest, I didn't always have that in my career. So if you're watching this and you're still working, like, bring those hobbies back into your life and do them. Schedule them, find time to do them. And I'm telling you, like, those little things will just help you just kind of get ready for retirement. It's awesome. It should be a great time of your life. It is, but doing the little extra planning is going to go a long way.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think a lot of it's been covered in terms of, having that identity and having people outside of the profession that you can be with and have friends and have other interests with, and then planning ahead. I remember my FTO was like, take $25 out of your check and put it into deferred comp, and something as small as that as you start off. And then soon, you kind of forget about it because that's what we do. And then if you build on that and you add part of your raise into it every year, whatever it happens to be, it doesn't matter the amount. But if you start doing that, that will give you that cushion a little bit to prepare for the future. So it's not as big of a factor. It's not the looming, asteroid that's about to hit the earth kind of thing. Like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And if you could take that away, that allows you to focus on more, okay, what am I really passionate about? What do I want to do with myself? But the other piece of advice I think I would give, and everything that's been said is great, and I agree with completely, is, and Mike started to allude to it in terms of the breakfast club that he mentioned, but just check on people. Check on other people that are retired, because you don't really know what they're going through, and they might not be processing. You might be living the high life, and maybe you like woodworking, and you've retired and you're just in your garage doing your thing and making all kinds of things, and life is just grand for you. It may not be grand for that guy or the gal that retired, 3 or 4 months before you, and they might be really struggling. So the periodic check-in and say, hey, how you doing? Want to have coffee? How's things? Just the check-ins matter, and those little touch points, I think, really do make a difference, because even though we're not all in the same thing anymore together, we are kind of forever bound by that bond of policing. And so no matter what that looks like, just taking the time to talk to other people and making sure they're okay. Because it feels pretty good when somebody calls and says, you were on my mind, just want to check and see. Well, it feels pretty good. Like, all right, I can get behind this. And so that, again, I go with that empathy and the compassion theme, which is something that I'm obviously very much into when it comes to this stuff. But I think that's the advice I would give.
And I want to build on that too, because I love that. So checking in, hey, how's it going? Whatever. And then asking this question, what have you been up to lately? Because that's going to open the conversation. They're like, not much, dig in. I've been really emphasizing this a lot more of lean in. ask more questions that are going to get them talking, because it's not just the suicide rate. So that's a whole nother thing we'll get into as we go deeper into this discussion. The suicide rate, we talk about it's 3 times higher than getting hurt in the line of duty. What we don't talk about is how many of those are retirees. And so we really do need to be checking in with the retirees and leaning into those questions. So I just wanted to build on that. I also wanted to say one thing with Greg, what you had said, when you hated everybody, I always recommend books, and I wanted to make sure. So here's another one. If you're in that phase where you hate everybody, I don't know if you guys can see that. Surrounded by Idiots, by Thomas Erickson. So I will put that link in the description as well. How to effectively, we're all surrounded by idiots these days, but there's different levels of how you process that. So, my last little wrap up 2 cents is yes, everything that was just said. Again, I'm going to emphasize the retirement ceremony. It's super important. And if you are like, I hear what you're saying, but I don't, nope, I'm not, whatever your thing, if you're feeling a way about it, reach out to me, reach out to Chris, reach out to any of the team and be like, okay, tell me more why I should do this. Here's why I don't want to do it. Here's, whatever, and talk it through. Because one of the things that we hear most of the time from those that didn't have any kind of ceremony is they're feeling like they missed something. It's just not, you didn't get closure. And it's important. You guys, your job is so damn important. You guys are doing such good work. You deserve, I don't care what shit you went through in your career, you deserve to be honored and recognized, even if it's for 5 minutes. So that's my little last 2 cents. And we are ending it with dramatic thunder. I don't know if anybody heard that, but I did. So with that, thank you all for being here. Thank you guys for tuning in. We're kicking off the month of retirement realities this month, and next month is going to be navigating holiday stressors. So tune in. Again, if you are breaching or you're coming into that retirement thing, go back to last month's episodes on money mindset. We mentioned deferred comp. Very important. We go really deep into that in a couple of the episodes. So tune in and thank you until next week.